A new car rolls off the truck with a $40,000 sticker in the window. By the time you drive it home, the dealer has made almost nothing on the car itself. And that was always the plan. Okay, so you want to own a car dealership. I know the picture in your head. A gleaming showroom. Rows of new cars under the lights. A salesman in a nice shirt shaking hands, and a big number on every windshield. It feels like the business is obvious. Buy cars low, sell them high, pocket the difference. Here's what actually happens. On a brand new car, after the discounts, the incentives, and the haggling, a dealer often makes only a few hundred to a couple $1,000s of front-end profit, and on many deals, close to nothing. Sometimes they lose money on the car just to hit a manufacturer bonus. Think about that. The single most expensive thing on the lot, the $40,000 object everyone is staring at, is the part the dealer barely makes money on. So how does a dealership, with its enormous building, its huge inventory, its army of staff, actually stay open? Because the car was never the product. The car is the bait. It's the thing that gets you in the door and into a chair. The real business starts the moment you say yes, in the little office down the hall and in the service bay out back. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where a dealership's money really comes from, and the quiet trap that can bankrupt one while the showroom looks busier than ever. Let me run the napkin math. First, the bait, the shiny number in the window and why it lies. Let's start with the car sale, because it's the part everyone assumes is the whole game. When you buy a new car, the dealer didn't get it for free. They bought it from the manufacturer, at a price often very close to what they'll sell it to you for. The gap between those two numbers, the front-end gross, is thin. On a typical new car, it can run just $1,000 to $2,500, and competition, online pricing, and your haggling grind it down further. Out of that thin slice, the dealer still has to pay the salesperson's commission, a share of the advertising, and the cost of having that car sitting on the lot for weeks. By the time the dust settles, the profit on the actual metal is often razor thin, and sometimes negative. Now, used cars are a bit friendlier. The margins there are wider because there's no sticker everyone already knows and no manufacturer setting the price. A dealer might make a few thousand on a used car instead of a few hundred. That's why you'll notice dealerships pushing used inventory and trade-ins so hard. It's simply better business than selling new. But here's the enemy in this story: the manufacturer and the illusion they help create. The whole showroom is theater. The lighting, the glossy floors, the free coffee, the salesman's urgency, all of it is designed to make you feel like the transaction is the car. To keep your attention on the windshield number while the real business waits patiently for you in the next room. Because a dealership doesn't actually make its living selling you a car. It makes its living on what happens in the 90 minutes after you decide to buy one. And that begins the moment they walk you into a small office and close the door. Here's where the money actually lives. It has two homes, and neither of them is the car. The first is a department most buyers don't even know has a name. It's called F&I, Finance and Insurance. It's that small office you get walked into after you agree on the car, where a very friendly person slides paper across a desk. This is the profit engine of the modern dealership. When you finance a car through the dealer, they arrange the loan with a bank, and they're allowed to mark up your interest rate and keep the difference. A percentage point here, spread over 60 months, quietly becomes hundreds or thousands of dollars of pure profit, and you never see it as a line item. That's called dealer reserve. Then, on that same desk, come the add-ons. The extended warranty, gap insurance, paint protection, tire and wheel plans. Each one carries a huge margin because the dealer is really just reselling an insurance product with a markup stacked on top. None of it is the car. All of it lands in that 90-minute window. Add it up and something strange emerges. In a typical dealership, the finance office can generate somewhere around a third of the store's entire gross profit, from a room that holds no inventory, has almost no cost, and touches every single deal. The margins in F&I run far higher than on the cars themselves. A few sheets of paper out-earn the $40,000 machine parked outside. But F&I is only half the story. Walk past the showroom, past the offices, all the way to the back of the building, and you'll find the real quiet giant, the service department. Parts and service is where a dealership makes money long after the sale. over and over for years. Oil changes, brake jobs, warranty repairs. The manufacturer pays them to perform, the diagnostic fee, the parts markup. The labor rate alone is marked up substantially over what the technician is paid. And unlike a car sale, which happens once, service happens again and again for the entire life of that vehicle. In a lot of dealerships, service and parts quietly produce a huge share of the total profit, often close to half. And it's the most stable half because people always need repairs, in good times and bad. When new car sales dry up in a recession, the service bays stay full because a broke customer fixes the old car instead of buying a new one. So strip it all back. A car dealership is not a store that sells cars. It's a lending office and a repair shop wearing a showroom as a costume. The car is the customer acquisition cost. The loan and the wrench are the business, which sounds like a beautiful machine, until you see the enormous, invisible cost holding the whole thing up. Here's the rule a dealer lives by. Keep the lot full, keep the deals moving. And here's the trap buried inside that rule. All those cars gleaming on the lot? The dealer doesn't own most of them. They borrowed the money to put them there. It's called floor plan financing, a giant line of credit used to buy inventory from the manufacturer. Every car sitting unsold is racking up interest every single day, like a taxi meter running on a parked car. When cars sell fast, that cost is invisible. But when they sit, when the economy slows or interest rates jump or they ordered the wrong models, the floor plan interest becomes a slow bleed. A lot full of unsold cars isn't an asset quietly waiting. It's a debt that gets more expensive every morning the doors open. Second trap, the dealer doesn't control their own supply. The manufacturer does. The factory decides which cars to build, how many to send, which slow-selling models to force onto the lot to get the popular ones. Miss your sales targets and you lose the bonuses that were often the only real profit on the new car side. You're an independent business on paper and a franchisee on a leash in practice. Third, the whole thing is brutally cyclical. Car buying is one of the first things people delay when money gets tight. A dealership carries the cost structure of a small factory, the building, the land, the staff, the floor plan debt. And when sales fall even 10 or 15%, that fixed weight can flip a profitable store into a bleeding one fast. The good years are very good. The bad years end dynasties. And fourth, the slow one. The model is changing underneath them. Online buying, fixed-price sellers, and manufacturers experimenting with selling directly are all chipping at the two things that actually pay the bills: the finance markup and the captive service work. Quick note on geography. These figures are US flavored, and the exact splits swing by brand, region, and year. So is the showroom worth owning? Let's run the two napkins. So basically, you were never in the business of selling cars. You're running a bank with a repair shop attached, and the cars are just how you get customers through the door. Napkin 1. You buy a dealership dazzled by the showroom. You chase new car volume, brag about units sold, and let the finance office and the service bay run on autopilot. New car margins are paper thin. Your lot is full of floor plan debt, a soft year hits, and suddenly the store that looked so busy is losing money with the lights on and the lot full. That's how dealerships die. Not from selling too few cars, but from misunderstanding which part was ever the business. Napkin 2. You treat the car as the customer acquisition cost it actually is. You run a sharp, honest finance office. You build a service department people trust and return to for a decade. And you keep your inventory lean so the floor plan meter barely ticks. Now the new car showroom is just a beautiful, expensive front door. And behind it sits one of the most durable cash machines in local business: recurring service, high-margin finance, and a customer you keep for years. Same building, same cars in the window. The difference was never the cars. It was knowing that the car was never the point. So here's your go or no-go. If you want to own the glamour, the shiny lot, the big banner, units sold this month, walk away. The metal will bleed you. But if you understand you're really buying a finance desk and a garage, and you can run both with discipline, a dealership can be a genuinely great business. Just never forget which room the money actually lives in. You're not buying a car store. You're buying a bank that happens to have a parking lot full of bait. So what should I run the napkin math on next? Drop the business in the comments. You decide.